Okay, so UFC 283 comes our way this weekend. I am psyched about this card. It's a fantastic card. It really is. 3 fights in particular I am looking forward to more than the rest. It's going to be Paul Craig, Johnny Walker. The co-main event, Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. And the main event, Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill. I'm going to be breaking down those fights. The co-main will be over on my Patreon. I'm going to be doing a preview, basically looking at what the fighters do well, how I think it's going to go, and giving you a lot of information, useful information if you are maybe into betting or whatever. I'm not saying, gambling's a mug's game, but I'm just saying there's a lot of information here, a lot of research that I do that you might find very useful if you are an MMA fan and if you're tuning in to the fights. So let's... So let's get started with Paul Craig versus Johnny Walker, taking place at 205 pounds. So, tail of the tape, height and reach go to Walker all day. Basically, Craig doesn't want to test the striking here because he's on the losing end of the skill and also the height and reach. I don't think there's anywhere in the striking that Paul Craig has an advantage, which is a problem. Paul Craig, in a nutshell, he's a submission savage. He's got an excellent guard. He's one of the best guard players in MMA. He really is. I can't think of anyone currently fighting that has a better aggressive guard than Paul Craig. I really don't. When you look at what he did to Ankalaev, he's always dangerous because that was the last seconds of that fight. And you watch what he did to Jamal Hill. He basically snapped Jamal Hill's arm off. It dislocated it. It was nasty. It's flopping around all over the place. It was nasty stuff. Craig's striking is okay, up to a point, but it's only okay because he looked all right against Shogun Rua, but let's put that into perspective. Shogun's not the man that he once was. I don't think he should test the striking with Johnny Walker when Johnny Walker just has so many advantages there. I think taking it to the ground, pulling guard, that's probably the path of least resistance for Paul Craig here. Then you've got Johnny Walker. He's spectacular, if not a little bit reckless. He has started training at Connor's gym, or old gym, SDG Island, with Kavanagh. So we'll see if Kavanagh manages to drill some of the... You don't want to remove all of the recklessness, but you just want him to be a little bit more measured and put a little bit more thought into what he's doing, because sometimes he gets caught by things because he's done something frankly pretty stupid. He's huge for 205 pounds as well, 6'6". He's got all the attributes, honestly. He's a very athletic guy. He tends to throw the very low percentage success, high reward strikes. So if they come off, they're fantastic. You're talking your flying knees, your big spinning things, stuff of that nature. I think that Kavanagh's probably going to have drilled some of that out of him, or at least get him more tuned in to throwing those attacks at the correct time, not just all the time where you're giving up takedowns and giving up position. He does tend to leave the chin open as well. That's been a problem in a few fights. So against Ryan Spann, he was lucky not to get completely KO'd. He did get knocked down and he ended up winning that fight. Fair play to him, but it still showed quite a huge gap in the armour. And we all saw what Jamal Hill did to Johnny Walker. That was one of the nastiest knockouts I've ever seen, but that might just be down to Jamal Hill having so much power. So, in summary, Paul Craig, he can strike up to a point, but mostly we saw that against Shogun Rua, and let's be fair, Shogun Rua he's just not the fighter that he once was. So Paul Craig looking good against Shogun Rua, that could be a double-edged sword, because it may mean that Paul Craig is slightly too confident in his striking, and against Johnny Walker he should not be. Against Johnny Walker, he's giving up masses of reach and size, and also Johnny Walker, I would say, is probably the more skilled striker. He throws some crazy stuff, but he is very good. That you can't deny that at all. For me, Paul Craig probably needs to get this to the ground. I think he can strike up until the point he needs to take it to the ground. I think the takedowns will more likely come from the clinch than rushing in and getting a double leg, because when you start lowering that head, Johnny Walker's going to just throw those knees straight up the middle and he'll catch you. So I do think that Craig's probably going to get this up against the fence, and at that point, either get the trips or even just pull guard from there. Grab an arm, pull guard, and once he's got Johnny Walker in his jiu-jitsu guard, I don't see Johnny Walker getting out of it. I think that Paul Craig gets another submission on his record here, and that is going to be my pick. The odds on the submission aren't up yet, so I'll be adding that to a post at a later date. It'll be close to Friday, but if you follow the Burt Green on Instagram, then you can find that. I'll do a post to the YouTube channel as well, just to make it easier. So the next one, we've got Davison Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno in the co-main event for the flyweight title. This breakdown is exclusively over on my Patreon. So if you would like to see the breakdown for this fight, please head over to the Burt Locker on Patreon now. Thank you. Main event. Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. Just a quick one, just to say, if you do enjoy this content, could you do me a favour, hit subscribe? It really does help out a lot. But let's crack on. Teixeira against Jamal Hill for the vacant light heavyweight title. Tail of the tape. You've got 2 inches of height and 3 inches of reach for Jamal Hill. He's actually deceptively big. He's 6'4", and he's deceptively long as well. But let's look at Glover Teixeira first. He's an absolute legend of the sport, first and foremost. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is great. He's stronger in top than in bottom. He very rarely plays the guard game, but when he gets into a dominant top position, he's usually getting the submission. He goes for the high percentage moves. Anything involving the neck, your rear naked chokes, your arm triangle chokes. There's nothing wrong with going for the high percentage moves. There's a reason they're high percentage moves. It's because they work. His boxing is basic, but it's tight. He does the simple stuff very well. He tends to avoid the complex stuff, which is a compliment, actually. I like that. I like that he just focuses on the fundamentals. His fundamentals are very solid, actually, and that's going to help him in this fight, because as long as he can keep that guard up and keep that chin tucked, then you can get away with a lot more than you think. He's got big fight experience. He's got 41 fights on his record, so he's seen everything at this point. He relies on his chin a little bit. He's no stranger to a dogfight, and he can be too willing to engage in those kind of fights in the past. You see the fights with Jerry Prochaska and Anthony Smith. He was on the losing end of both of those. No, he wasn't. Sorry, that's a lie. He won against Smith, but he weathered a hell of a storm against Smith. But what I'm saying is he does tend to get involved in these scrappy affairs. So the only guys that's been knocked out by Gustafsson, where if you remember when Gustafsson came back, I think it was in Sweden, and he finished him with this Mortal Kombat style combo that was just crazy. It finished with an uppercut. It was ridiculous. It was like an 8-punch combo. It was crazy. He also got knocked out by Rumble Johnson, but no shame there considering what we know about Rumble Johnson's knockout power. Then we look at Jamal Hill. He's very tall, he's got a great reach, and he does use it. He's got an electric right cross. His right cross is just absolute money because he kind of steps with it as well. What I love about him is his relaxed style. His relaxed striking style allows him to kind of punch with this weird power, because he hits with so much power, but it's kind of, he hits different. I've said it before, he hits different because it doesn't look like he's throwing with a lot of power, but when he hits people, he changes them. He changes their demeanor. When you look at what he did to Ovince St. Preux, like as soon as he landed on Ovince St. Preux realized, he's like, oh no, this is a problem. This is an issue. Now, he's been caught in submissions before. He got caught by Paul Craig, got his arm popped out. And he's only had 13 pro fights. Those are the only things that I would say go against him in this one. The wealth of experience in favour of Glover Teixeira. So to summarise, Glover is a crafty veteran. He has seen everything at this point, except possibly Jamal Hill, who, as I say, he hits different. He's just got a different kind of power. Glover, he's got very good boxing. Fundamentally, he's very sound, but he's giving up a lot of reach, and I don't think that he wants to test how hard Jamal Hill hits, because I think that that's the kind of test where you're like, oh, I want to see how hard he hits. Then you're looking up at the lights and it's done. So Hill got caught in Craig's guard, but I don't think that that's going to be too much of an issue against Glover Teixeira. He's not known for fighting out of his guard. He generally attacks from top position, or from back mount. You've got like a lot of arm triangle chokes and rear naked chokes. The only submission I can see in the UFC for Teixeira where he would have been on his back is the guillotine of James Tahuna. All of the other ones are from top position. He's got a crushing top game. Doesn't usually play around in the guard so much. So if Glover can get top position, then he's probably going to get the submission. you don't want to let Glover get top position because it's crushing. It really is. However, I don't know if he's going to find that top position. I think that he's a very good striker, and in order to try and close the distance in order to create the scrambles to get it to the ground, Teixeira is going to have to probably eat a couple of shots going in. And I think that if you start eating shots against Jamal Hill, that's going to be a real issue. I'm rolling the dice here. Again, like I said, if Glover gets this into top position, he can win this. He can. Don't think he can't. But my money will be going on Jamal Hill by knockout because I just think it's his time. I've been high on Jamal Hill for a very long time. I've been saying for years he hits different. I think he hits differently this weekend. I think he captures the light heavyweight title. So, if you've enjoyed that, please do hit subscribe. I'll be doing a recap next week to see how my picks have come off. It's usually pretty terrible, but either way, you've got some good information there if you want to make some bets of your own. I just want to ask you, look, let me know who you're betting on in the comments. I always love talking about this kind of stuff. I like seeing what other people are betting on. And yeah, I hope all of your bets come off. And until next time, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.